Hi, I'm Holly Mosier, and this is,
Hi, I'm Julie Becker.
and we are going to talk to you about going virtual in 2 days, challenges and opportunities in teaching information technology in the era of COVID 19. We're from Eastern Michigan University, the College of Engineering and Technology. So, we're going to tell you a little bit about ourselves and what we do.
Hi, I'm Julie Becker. I have over 20 years of industry experience in product development and design and manufacturing. My PhD is in technology management, and primarily I teach the CAD/CAM product development and design. In our program is fashion marketing innovation. I'm currently an interim school director too.
Hi, I'm Holly Mosier, and I have 15 years industry experience as a retail buyer. I teach buying, retail math, e-commerce, and any supply chain management class that's really in our program for fashion marketing innovation. I'm also a PhD student in education leadership, and we're going to talk to you a little bit about our study. Our outline today is who we are, what we do, our zygus of the spirit of the times in COVID 19, the purpose of the presentation, what is virtual engagement, when we made the switch to the virtual environment due to COVID 19. Technology, we looked at the methods of delivery, the connectivity, student engagement, mental health and welfare, our student obstacles, and then we have our conclusion, and we will offer some question and answers to you.
So, Eastern Michigan University is in Ypsilanti, Michigan. We are founded in 1849, and we're part of the Mid-American Conference. We have 7 colleges and schools which are listed: College of Arts and Science, Business, Education, Health and Human Services, and we're from the College of Engineering and Technology. We also have an honors college and a graduate school. Our student enrollment is over 19,000 students, 20 or 200 plus majors and minors in the undergraduate levels. Eastern is considered one of the most diverse and inclusive universities in Michigan. We've also been named Best in the Midwest, and we are known as the working class university.
Who our students are and how do they learn? Well, we have 8,989 females, 5,883 males. So a lot of our students are full-time students, over 10,000. We have 4,300 part-time students. We have a diverse ethnicity group, as you can see in the chart. The average age of our students is 23. Most of them are first-generation college students. Many of them are commuters. They don't live on campus. They work part-time jobs while going to school. They have technology challenges, so access to computers aren't always easy for them. They are hands-on learners. They tend to learn better visually, forced to learn verbally. Social learners that have been put into an asynchronous environment.
The visualization, the little image on the bottom of the screen just talks about what type of learners our students are. And due to the programs that we teach out of is primarily the fashion, automotive engineering. We'll have a different slide down the road, but our students are very hands-on visual learners, and they many times have issues with expressing themselves verbally. It's more visual. So these are some challenges that we will be talking about later in our presentation. So the spirit of the times is, how did we go virtual in basically 2 days? We are identifying what we had to do, what kind of changes we had to meet, what's going on with our demographics. The students are being evaluated differently. The way we manage manufacturing currently in the fashion industry is changing. Technology is changing. And overall, the COVID really wreaked havoc in many of our industries. And what was interesting is the PPE is part of the fashion and the textile industry, and how we have actually a resurgence in the fashion industry due to the COVID. So we'll talk a little bit about that. But currently, the fashion is changing, and Hallie's going to talk a little bit about the brick and mortar stores and what's happening.
So many of our fashion industry stores that are brick and mortar, such as the luxury goods stores, are going out of business. So many of them have filed Chapter 11. Luxury department stores that have been in business for over 100 years are actually leaving the industry. So that has been something that's really ever changing in our industry right now. E-commerce is thriving. So stores like Amazon, Alibaba, some of the really well-known e-commerce is doing very well. So we've really had to adapt to changes when we're in this learning environment that's virtual, not only teaching our students, but showing them the way to adapt to a career that might be focused solely on an e-commerce business. And the big box stores are doing great as well. So looking at your career outcome, where will you go with a fashion industry? You might be working in a big box retailer as well as working for a corporate office of a big box or in an e-commerce area. But luxury is kind of suffering with the COVID-19 times. So we really have to look at how fashion is evolving here with the pandemic.
So, given that the soft goods industry has many aspects, we have the technical textiles area where the PPE really has proven very important for antimicrobials and containing the viruses. So, that area has made a big resurgence. It also is including apparel, furniture, footwear, automotive, outerwear, military, marine, and recreational interiors. So the soft good industry has actually really made a comeback with a lot of the PPE and the shortages and things that we're having to find ways to produce this in house because of supply and demand.
And COVID has not just changed the supply chain for clothes, but if you think about when you're in your local stores trying to gather supplies now, things are out of stock. And as a merchant or working in the retail industry, there's still things we can't get. Looking for disinfectant, Clorox wipes. Think about the toilet paper crisis that everyone went through. There's so many things that merchants and retail industry suppliers have to worry about with the supply chain. What's the next big thing that they have to produce so that consumers can have it? So, this is something that really is on the mind. It's not just apparel, there's supply chain shortages all over the place.
So the reason why we're bringing these points up, and this slide shows what the impact of the current industry pre-COVID, which the numbers for post-COVID hasn't. Well, we would hope we're in a post-COVID era soon, but we're still in it. But we have to think about these issues as we're instructing our students and seeing what is the spirit of the times and what's going on in our particular industry, which is affected in many industries. But currently, the global fashion industry is a $2.5 trillion industry, and it shows that the U.S. consumer annually spends more than $380 billion on fashion related items. I'm curious as to see what those numbers will be after COVID and what people have spent in the PPE. But it does employ over 585,240 workers based on a statistic that we pulled from 2019. And currently, we have seen some comparisons with the COVID-19 have increased the soft good industry employments due to the PPE demand.
So, what are some of the adjustments made for the virtual engagement due to COVID 19? Well, faculty has made a lot of adjustments having to go so quickly into a virtual environment. They had to adjust timelines and due dates of what maybe assignments were due, what was going to be projected for the end of the semester. 2 days was a very quick adjustment for faculty as well as students. Faculty adjusted their teaching environments. Some only had desktop computers that they were working from on campus, so some of them had to figure out how to get a laptop. The university implemented new policies and procedures, such as an equipment checkout process, just so that they could take something home with them. Technology infrastructure had to be boosted. Some of our infrastructure that we were working with couldn't house the necessary software that we needed to be able to go online in 2 days. So it was really hard for students to have access as well as faculty just to be able to get that um, infrastructure ready for students to be able to continue on with their courses. Online course shelves for delivery material had to be created, and there was a time delay due to demand in university IT departments. And that was partly because some of the professors did not have core shells in the learning management systems already. They weren't accustomed to creating an online course, so that needed to be done. And course materials had to be loaded online into those course shells. So that was a whole nother part of the puzzle that needed to be done. The learning curve for some people to teach online with online tools had to be provided. Some of the professors weren't accustomed or fit to teach online yet. They just taught in person. In a new sense of open community to support these faculties that were in need had to be established. So I know in our department, the fashion marketing innovation, we really banded together as a team and created that sense of community and teamwork to help professors so that everyone worked together to make it a best student learning environment possible. And it really helped because we had 2 days to get it ready.
And other part that we don't have on the slide was that we also have some full-time and part-time lecturers, and many of them had to be thrown into a different work environment, and their the working at the university was a part-time job, so we had to step in as full-time faculty to help out the part-time people to make adjustments for them. In some cases we had to cover their classes because they had other issues with daycare and things personally that they had to take care of. So the next slide talks about the students and things that the students had to do to adjust, and that goes hand in hand with what the faculty had to do. So we had to make interaction with the students possible and find a different way to engage the students. Many of them were very afraid, and there was issues with them having connectivity. So we really had to increase our communication and our expectations of where do we go from here. Many of them were worried that, oh, they don't have internet access. So we had to have them engage with each other, try to use more peer-to-peer networks. Once we got them online, we try to take advantage of the breakout rooms with the Zoom and some of the other media, the software that is being used. Some people didn't just use Zoom, they used Google Meets and some of the other platforms until we had an established platform that the university was going to maintain. So we also had to do program assessments and find out different ways to assess the student learning outcomes and make adjustments on the fly. We also had to emphasize ways for students to learn on their own, too.
Other courses that really provided challenges for us with technology were the lab courses. Those were ones that were really interactive when we were in class, but then when we moved them in 2 days to online, it really was a challenge to get that same interaction. So methods of delivery that we used were videos, which was using like a screencast or some sort of method to do it. We also tried to have remote access for our software, which was kind of difficult because we have unique software like Gerber CAD and we have Mockshop, which is a virtual software. So we used something VPN software, which provided remote access to the lab that they were working in. Also, just using access to mainstream software like Adobe Suite. That was a whole nother thing, getting them access that they had every day in a lab. Just making sure we had that interaction with students was really important as well. And giving a good delivery method with the course materials. So having one-on-one meets with them and, just being able to give them that attention that they needed so that they understood what was going on. Because lab courses were truly a challenge to fulfill within 2 days.
And there was just one more thing I'd like to add, that there were students that were in the middle of projects that were more hands-on. So then they had to take some of their projects home with them, but because they didn't have the equipment like a sewing machine or an industrial fabric cutter, the faculty had to make adjustments to the projects and rearrange the schedule so that the students would have some sort of deliverables at the end. So we had something that we could grade them on.
Other technologies that we used were the different methods that we could use for delivery. So, Zoom was the preferred method of most universities, but we found that Zoom really had a learning curve in the beginning because there were a lot of glitches with Zoom. We had to add on a little bit of like space with it and pay for some upgrades to Zoom. So we did add to Google Meet. We used Adobe Connect. We had Microsoft Teams. There's Ring Central and WebEx. Many of us tried lots of different ways till we found the one that met the needs best for each course. Another thing using, like I mentioned, screen recorders. QuickTime screencast recorder, iMovie, being able to adjust your screencasts that you're doing and alter them. That was really important to be able to deliver the best method of delivery and make sure that your students were seeing what they needed to see.
And one thing that was really interesting with the CAD class and some of the sewing classes and some of our other hands-on classes, that the students were able to use some of their iMovie and some of their background. They were very savvy with how they would capture their projects. So we had some students using like QuickTime or iMovie to capture what their projects were and their process, and then they would upload those movies to be graded, and it ended up working out pretty good.
Yeah, it was nice to see them interact back with us in the same types of methods of delivery.
It was also interesting that a lot of the students taught the teachers on a lot of this information. So it was very interesting. And so going back to connectivity, with being put into this environment in such a short period of time, and the university went into a really quick shutdown based on the governor's orders, we had issues with um, getting access to some of the software. We had to work with our vendors. We had to even update some of the software again with some of the license agreements. We had to work with different vendors to see if we can get some virtual licenses agreements, and we had to work with VPNing into the university network system. So there was many different things that we had to do with bandwidth connections. We had issues with not only faculty that live in remote places. We have a lot of faculty that work in outlying areas that did not have kind of internet, along with students. We had some students that would sit in their car out in the parking lot of a Starbucks just so that they can to finish their class. So there was a lot of different things that we had found that were problems that we had to resolve and find solutions to.
So we also had issues with technology, not only with the actual technology, but with student engagement. So we looked at trying to get students to turn their cameras on. That was something we were working on. So we were working on discussion boards, using interaction that way, one-on-one virtual sessions with students and instruction. So doing specialized Google Meet sessions so that they could understand the content a little bit better. Virtual industry led webinars. So if there was something with content like NRF, National Retail Federation, would have content that would be pertaining to some of our supply chain management sessions, virtual industry career fairs. So if there's a career industry led fair, that would be something that might engage our students a little bit more too. And then putting them in breakout rooms so they can interact peer on peer is always a great way to engage our students as well. So we found that technology can also be created through some sort of aspect of engagement within one another.
So, other things that we really need to be aware of is the mental health and welfare of our students and our faculty. So, there was different things that was very important that we had found, and also working with our colleagues, is trying to establish a routine and maintaining some clear communications within the program, within the school, and with our students. then the relationship building. We have found that there was a lot of things that we had to do to build relationships with our students, and we actually were kind of forced to really know what our students are going through. A lot of the students felt unsafe, and in fact, some of our faculty felt unsafe. So we had to make sure that we were trying to give them assurances. We had to give them hope. We almost became almost a counselor in some respects because of the empathy and the perspectives of everybody's environment and what they were going on.
And so, like, a lot of times I would meet one on one with people to talk to them about basically like meeting with them just to see how they were doing. It wasn't even about a class, it was just building that relationship with someone to make sure they were doing okay. So, the mental health of sense of safety to make sure you're doing well, you're feeling okay today, really is just as important as the how are you doing in my class.
And part of that will also enhance their learning environment and the learning strategy. So I think through this whole thing, and our next slide discusses about the lessons learned. So part of it is we got to know our students in a little different capacity than we had before. So we also had to understand the students' issues they've had with technology, and also we had to understand our colleagues' issues with technology. And people, in some cases, had to admit their weaknesses, which was
Mhm.
kind of a hard thing in some respects. That people and students had to realize that they weren't as knowledgeable in certain areas as and it exposed things that were not exposed before.
So, we also were able to develop new course materials, including interactive materials with videos, industry engagement, software, peer to peer interactions, things that we can carry through for our next virtual environment.
So other things that we also had to make sure that we got to know how many people YouTubed how to use Zoom better. So as time went on, people were getting a little savvier. They're learning how to use the virtual environments. There's a lot of different things we had to do, but in the beginning it was very difficult. So as we move on, other lessons that we have learned were different types of things. We have found that students were reluctant as time went on to even turn on their cameras. So, and we're starting to lose our audience. In the beginning, the novelty was, just trying to get through the technology issues. And then the students are starting to find ways to multitask or do other things or turn on their virtual on their screen and or turn off their camera and walk away, and then we lose the students. So we've come up with some creative ways
And
to.
so we introduced theme weeks, which was really exciting. So we did like bring your pet to class, show your favorite food, dress in your favorite sports attire, wear a Halloween costume. And by doing this, they turn their camera on. They're more interactive, they're more engaged. It might be only a little part of your class, but they tend to keep their camera on throughout the whole class because they want to see what everyone's wearing. They want to see that cute little dog or cat that's sitting next to them, even a hamster, maybe. But it's something that engages them and really keeps them wanting to come back for more because the next week's, the fun sports attire or whatever you have. So really, it's almost like you're bringing them back to that fun spirit week in high school, but they get to do it all over again.
And overall, the one of the big lessons that we learned was patience and understanding. We had to understand where everybody's coming from. We had to understand our student who had a preschooler at home, and they had to run around after their toddler and still stay on an online class. So having a better understanding of everyone's environment, because we were all in this together.
Okay. Thank you so much for coming to our presentation.
Please tune in for our Q&A during the conference. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you.